It was early in the afternoon. Quizzy had been grazing next to a field that was set aside to be cut for hay. The grass Quizzy had been eating was a little bit tasteless for her liking, so naturally she decided that she would try to get into the tasty field next door. Quizzy went up and down the hedge until she came across a wooden pallet that had been used to block up a hole in the wire netting. Quizzy thought that she might be able to dislodge it enough to get into the next field, so she put her nose in behind the pallet and began to push. She was not one to give up easily, and soon enough the pallet began to move. Quizzy kept pushing until it had moved enough for her to get into the next field. Quizzy now began to make her way through the hay, eating some of the herbs and flowers that had been missing from the field she had just left. Next thing she knew, a hen pheasant called Ella was sitting directly in front of her, clutching her 5 chicks who had recently hatched. I don't know who was the most frightened, Quizzy or Ella. The startled Quizzy jumped back and Ella took off, flying a few meters further into the hay, shouting to Andy, the cock pheasant of course, for help. The result was pandemonium. Ella screeching for her chicks, Andy flying at Quizzy, the chicks scattered all around the field calling for their mother. Andy landed right in front of Quizzy, screaming at her to get away from their chicks. The startled Quizzy did not know what to do next. As she was gathering her thoughts as to how she could get away from the pheasant family, one of the frightened chicks ran right between Quizzy's legs. At this very moment, Andy flew at Quizzy with his feet and claws outstretched straight into Quizzy's face, catching the lamb right on the nose. Already off balance, Quizzy rolled over in the hay with a furious Andy scratching at her wool. Quizzy was now in considerable pain and just wanted to get away. Andy's claws were now full of wool which he could not get rid of. Ella had finally gathered her chicks together, except that the chick that had gone under Quizzy's legs had got caught up in Quizzy's wool. Quizzy managed to get to her feet and began to run back to the hole in the hedge with Andy in close pursuit. Fortunately for Quizzy, Andy had gathered so much wool in his feet he could not run, nor could he take off to fly, and was fully occupied trying to get the wool of his feet. He was not a pretty sight as he struggled to pick the wool out of his feet. It was in his nostrils, in his beak, bits caught under his wings. He looked as if he had been playing in snow rather than struggling in a hay field. Panting for breath, Quizzy reached to the hole in the hedge with the chick still caught in her wool. By chance, the chick who was struggling to get free caught himself in the hedge as Quizzy dragged herself back to her field. Fortunately, this freed him. He was not badly hurt and was quickly reunited with Ella, who now moved her brood well away from the sheep's field. Andy was seen flying around with white wool socks for some weeks. Quizzy did not attempt to go back into the tasty hayfield again. Another lesson learned the hard way.